All right, we're excited to be back out practicing, getting ready for this season. This is what we do it for. We have so limited opportunities with these guys, with 29 practices, of which have some walk through before the game and before you play a game. So the time gets so limited with this. It's great. I know our players are excited to be on the field. Our coaches are excited to be back out there. And the other thing makes this the best time of year for us, and how the calendar works. These next 2 weeks are the only time of year we're playing football with nothing else to worry about. There's no school or any of those opportunities. The only other opportunity you get like that is bowl prep. And so I think this is a great time of year. Our guys enjoy it, where they're just concentrating on football, trying to become the best they can be out there on the field, and continue growing this program and pushing this program to be a championship level program. And excited. I know we're excited. Obviously, fan base. Hopefully, continue our sellout streak this year, which looks like I think we're sold out of season tickets, and now it's all the return tickets from the opposing teams. They're going to get. I'm sure we'll sell those out and continue everything going in the direction we have. I think the excitement around the program right now has never been higher. When you look at the ticket sales, the plan of stadium expansion, the new Seal football facility for us to move into right after the year ends, it's going to be pretty special. I think probably it should look, and walking through it. If you haven't walked through it, it's unbelievable. It'll be the premier facility in the Southeastern Conference, and if not the nation. And really excited everything going on. So.
If you got a question, raise your hand. We'll get the microphone to you. Stop there.
I think a year ago we were sitting here, we were talking about depth, building depth to the point where you can contend with the LSUs and Alabamas. You said you felt like you were close last season. You've talked about depth showing up late in some games. Where do you feel like you are now going into this season with depth?
We're getting there. I still think we're getting closer, Obviously, good and bad problems. When you have guys leaving early to go in the first round of the NFL draft, that's a good thing. It shows the direction the program's headed and the talent we're recruiting here in Mississippi. And, and the players know that they can come play for us here in the state and have great things happen to them. And, but that's one thing that always sets you back a little bit depth-wise, because, when you plan, we try to plan 2 to 3 years out with depth and recruiting, to keep that balance. But I think when we're on the practice field now, we're deeper than we've been since I've been the head coach. When the twos come on the field, you don't see as significant a drop-off maybe as you have seen in the past.
Could you talk a little bit about how practice was today and the transition going to the farm?
It's always great. I think some young guys figure it out because they've never been over there, of where to go and what it's like, and looking for shade, and there's none out there. And I think that is always that first reaction when you change it out there. I think they got a little more rain out there than we did here, believe it or not, just even though it's right about half a mile away. So it's a little bit soggy out there. The fields were today, but I think for us it is that mindset. There's no school. It's just football time. It's training camp, and I love being at a different location for training camp than our normal location. This is a different time of year, and being out there at the farm makes it feel different.
I think I can get you to properly evaluate your first recruiting class when you got here. One of them's in the NFL now, and you've got a lot of other senior starters from that recruiting class.
Yeah, actually a couple of them are in the NFL, because you have Pernell McPhee, Chris White, Fletcher are all in the NFL right now. I'm trying to think who else. I think Vic, he wasn't our first year. He was our second year. Ended up being a pretty good recruiting class, and you look at that, but I think you go back, and the funny part, I don't look at it all, I guess, or how you can cross-references is, look at the stars, I guess, that guys had, or what the expectations of certain guys, and then how they panned out. And that ends up being a huge deal as you look back of who we hit on, who we missed on, and if we hit on somebody, why were they successful? Is it a trait that is there something we missed in recruiting where this guy turned out even better than we thought it would be? Is it because he has a certain personality, a certain drive that allows him to succeed in our program, and vice versa? Why did somebody not succeed? We always try to evaluate that in recruiting so that when you go forward, well, he could run a 4.3 in high school. He still ran a 4.3 while he was here, but he wasn't successful. So that wasn't the statistic that changed it. What were the things that made it different? But that first class had a lot of great players from Mississippi, and a lot of them have had very successful careers, and hopefully have continue to have great careers. We still have some of those guys this year, and a couple of them for the following year still.
Along the same lines of the recruiting classes the past few years, I mean, kind of curious, how do you feel like, from the character standpoint, how well y'all have done, and how much emphasis is obviously put on that?
I mean, we put a huge emphasis on it, and I think we've been okay. I think we've been okay. Again, we go back and evaluate the character issues that you've hit and missed on. The character issues, I think some people look at character issues that you've hit and missed on as guys that have maybe had legal issues or guys that have gotten in trouble. That's not the only character issue we look at. We look at their work ethic. That's a character issue for us. Their desire to get a degree and graduate, to do the right thing on and off the field, even though they might not really get in trouble. They might not do bad things when they walk out of the building. Are they all into our program and with those things? So we continue to evaluate those, but we've hit a lot more than we've missed. And I think our coaches do a good job of finding out about the people they go after as best we can. In the exposure you get sometimes to these kids and the limitations you have, especially for the head coach, it's hard to judge people's character when you get to go visit them off campus one time. That's sometimes you can miss some character issues. And like I said, because there's so many varieties of character issues we look for.
You mentioned that every year going into the season trying to identify your senior leaders. Is that as big of a question this year with Devin Jones and Jonathan Banks and guys like that?
Yeah, because it's all of them. I think you look at successful teams, their seniors play their best. And not just in a leadership role, but in how they perform and how they play every day. So I think we have some guys that give solid leadership that are seniors, which is fantastic. But we need the entire senior class to have their best season if we're going to have a successful year. That is an important aspect of that senior leadership, that they don't just lead and do things the right way. I always say it's easier for the seniors. They know what to expect at the training camp. They've prepared themselves in the off season. They're in great shape. So, they're not gasping for air between plays and stuff. They've prepared themselves for this season. But it's going to be their leadership and all is going to be a lot dependent on their performance as well. Are they performing at the highest levels as seniors?
Going back to recruiting questions about Jonathan Banks, and it just seems from the outside that he would be almost like your ideal recruit, and how he's kind of progressed. Small-town Mississippi kid has progressed, gotten better, and, probably has a chance to go on to the NFL. Just talk about his development and what that meant as far as, kind of your plan of how to develop this program.
Well, it is huge. I think for us, our coaches, we spend a lot of time recruiting kids in the state of Mississippi, that we try to get into every high school and evaluate the players that are in this state. And you look at, I think high school coaches appreciate it, that they can call us and know that their kids are going to get evaluated and looked at by us. And, that we're not, nothing against, rivals and scout and 24/7, nothing against everybody, but we're not taking their evaluation. We're doing our own evaluation on these kids. And, and whether it's your newspaper, whoever is evaluating, we trust ours. Like, we have our own Dandy Dozen list. We have our own 5 stars in our deal. And so, Brad, you need to make a list, and I can reference you that we have our own list of your guys. But, we do have our list, and we really try to trust our evaluations. And there are kids that are very much overlooked within this state. And not just now. I think, part of it is, like I tell our staff, I mean, look throughout history, there's been a lot of them that have been overlooked, and there are a lot of places. But, Mississippi seems like a big place of that, and we want to make sure we evaluate the kids in this state the right way, and show that, this is where they know they can come here and represent their state, at their state university. So we want them to have that opportunity to do that. Watching him on film, he just did everything. I like guys that do everything. You know, when guys do everything on film, and not just in football. I did it in basketball and baseball and everything on top of that. But, you know, a guy that's going to play receiver, running back, quarterback, plays all over the place on defense. In my mind, that's a high school coach that looks and says, this is my best player. I'm going to make sure I spotlight him on our whole team. He's going to, wherever the action's going to be, I'm going to make sure he's in the middle of it because he's our star player. Well, those are the guys you want. I want the star player. I want whoever the high school coach feels their best football player is. We want to evaluate him, and we want to go after him. Then if he's big enough and fast enough that we think that he can play in the SEC, that's our type of guy. And you know, and that was something with John Banks. He did it all, and that is something that to me that I like because he's a ball player, and ball players are going to find a way to get on the field for you at some place.
Coach, can you talk about what Chris Wilson means to this team and also what he means for you in terms of relationship with players and recruits?
Well, I think he does a really good job of that. You know, I mean, and you know, I think Chris is a guy that we're very fortunate. I mean, he was coaching at his alma mater, near his home, where he was raised and all that. And I think, you know, when I got a chance to meet with him, he looked at the opportunity, looked at the direction our program was going in, and he thought, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to grow. And the great thing, you know, I think Chris has done is he has grown as a coach since he's been here. And, you know, that is something that you always want to see. You know, none of us have all the answers. And I think he's a guy that's come in and taken on the role from being kind of co-coordinator to being the coordinator, how it affects everything in how he has to deal with the players, because you have to deal with players outside of your position group. At times, you know, I mean, I think that's, as coaches, sometimes you get so locked in on your guys, then all of a sudden you become a coordinator and you're responsible for more guys. Then you have the opportunity to become a head coach, you're responsible for all of them. And you have to, that development in a coach, and you understand that, and I think he's really embraced that development and continues to improve himself to, you know, to put himself in a position to be a head coach one day. Well, I mean, all our guys. I mean, you know, if you look on our coaching staff and we try to pull it out, we want guys that are intense, that are, you know, I think the players take on personalities of their coaches, and coaches sometimes take on some of the personalities of their players. We want to be a team that when you turn on that film, you say, "Boy, that team plays with relentless effort." That is a team that goes hard for 60 minutes and beyond if they have to on Saturdays. You come watch us practice, that's a team that flies around the field. And that's the attitude we want our coaches to have, and that passion that he has out there on the field, that's what we want everybody to have.
How much have you seen Tyler Russell grow over the span of last year, you know, two-quarterback system with Chris, now pretty much taking over as the #1 for this year's team?
You know what, I'm really pleased because, you know, I think Tyler's much, much better right now than he was last year at this point. You know, in overall, and understanding the defenses, understanding the offense, and decision-making, and throwing the football, doing everything he needs to do. He's really improved from last year to this year. And the interesting thing, if you look at human nature, last year he was in a competition. This year he's going to be the starter. So if there, you know, you would think that this is a time that you could actually take your foot off the gas if you wanted to in human nature a little bit, because I'm going to be the guy. And he's actually continued to speed up and really improve himself. So, you know, that to me shows that he has what we need, which is he has that winning attitude that he's going to continually work to be the best he can be.
Dan, staying with the quarterback situation, what is your plan for Dak, and is he going to figure in the plan at all, maybe a series or something?
Yeah, you know, I mean, well, one, we have to get him on the field. You know, you look, last year we had two quarterbacks that had played in games. So the desperateness to get them both on the field early was not as high, maybe it is now, because the only quarterback we have on our roster that's taken a snap is Tyler Russell. So, and, you know, I mean, you're a play away. We could be a play away at practice where tomorrow, knock on wood, but I mean, you're a play away from him not being a quarterback. I can't tell you that. So we have to make sure for the team that we have other guys ready, not just now in development, but as the season goes on. Even, you know, in early in games, in meaningful situations in games, we have got to put Dak Prescott on the field so he can understand how to play and what it's like to be out there in the spotlight on game day.
We'll take one more question from Brandon, and then we'll keep Coach around, but we've got a bunch of players here, so we'll try to get everything moving along.
You know, back to depth, what areas from last year you think have improved depth-wise, and you look at the roster, and also, as a two-parter, how close are you to competing with the LSUs and the Alabamas when it comes to the fourth quarter with that depth?
Well, I think you look, and I don't know, I mean, time will tell where we are. I mean, if you look, we had a guy drafted in the first round last year. I think Alabama had 4 or 5. So, several. And over the last couple of years, we've gone 2 years in a row with a first rounder and then some middle round guys. So, as you keep looking, that means, a couple of years ago we had some, when Fletcher Cox was a backup, we had some good depth because here, not that he was a backup very much here, but, here's a guy that was a first rounder that at one point was coming off the bench for us. And so, I don't know if we're where they are because they're looking at multiple first rounders. And they, guys that are, I remember, a great example to me is you look at an Alabama where their Heisman Trophy runner guy comes off the field, and the guy that's coming in behind him was even drafted higher. That's some pretty good depth right there. That's better than the guy that won the Heisman. I don't know. I had that, I guess, at Florida, and I had Tebow and Newton and Brantley. That was depth. That's a good room. But we're getting there in that aspect of things. I think our depth across the board, I think the one place I see it a lot for us, special teams, that is a great area where I judge depth because you're looking for guys now, who are guys that can go play special teams at the speed you need to in the SEC. And if you want to try to save some starters and get a couple guys that are going to be playing maybe 60 reps of defense, and I want to be able to give them a breather on kickoff, even though that's one of the most important plays of the game, I have a guy I feel very comfortable going onto the field with, and as we're filling out the special teams depth chart, there's a lot of names filling up all those spots. And so I think that helps an awful lot there where across the board you do. I think we've brought this year on purpose, I don't know how many of them are going to actually contribute this season, but we have more linemen in camp this year than I've ever had as a coach. If you combine, we have 22 offensive linemen and 18 defensive linemen in camp. That's more than I've ever had anywhere as a coach, and that's fantastic. Now, how many of them are going to contribute this year? I don't know, but as we're building depth for the future, there's an awful lot of guys getting reps.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.